Hello, everyone. It's Ken. Welcome to everyone who's tuning in live right now. And for those of you who are participating in the replay, it's a new idea I'm working with today. It's the 8th of April, 2020. And actually, it was yesterday morning. I was inspired to gather virtually as a circle here with you and everyone in the community just to explore some ideas, answer questions, and meditate a little bit. And as I've been sitting with the group here, as I shared in my email this morning, all this emotion has been coming up in me. And so I fully anticipate more emotion to be coming. It's all very genuine for me. And it comes from a place of just a deep experience of the light shines in and through and as each one of us here on the planet, not just in this circle, not just in this community. For those of you who are new to me and to the channel, I invite you to subscribe if you haven't already. And if you click the bell to be notified, you'll certainly receive an email from YouTube when I go live, anytime I go live. And if you click like on my Facebook page, you'll also, I think, get notified, or it'll show up in your feed, or something will happen. In any case, before we get started today with the first question, which comes from Sue in our community, she asked me to define ego. I'm interested in exploring that and interested in your comments as well. I don't actually have a way of seeing who's on the line based on the way that I'm sharing this live stream with you out on Facebook and YouTube. So if you would like to say hi, then I'll know who you are and I can say hi back to you. And you can do that in the comments below the video. And if you're on replay, you can do that there and I'll also see them and I'll respond to you. Before we do anything else, I'd just like to formally open into this sacred space that exists within all of us and honor that deeply by acknowledging it and coming together in that way now. So if it's comfortable for you, I invite you to close your eyes, begin breathing in and out through the nostrils if you haven't already, with your palms to the sky. And let's take a deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, I just invite you to let go of everything that has come before in this day, all the way out to the count of 8. And as you let go of that, opening up more fully to the experience of the divine within you, within your mind, within your heart, within your being, as you release that breath all the way out to the count of 8. And another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since you were born, all the way out to the count of 8. Again, as you let go, you can release the thoughts and the feelings and those ways of being that have dominated throughout your life. And as you release them, you make a space for the divine to express more fully in you, through you, and as you, all the way out to the count of 8. And another deep breath in and hold. And as you begin releasing this breath now, letting go of everything that has come before since the inception of your soul. Again, out to the count of 8. Releasing now everything held in your awareness, not just the dissonance, not just the resonance, everything, that you may open more fully to encounter, experience, and receive the totality of divine resonance and presence within you, all the way out to the count of 8. Notice the cue in your mind's eye, still with your eyes closed, that cue of breath, the color infusing itself. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. And the river is flowing. And notice the breath of the planet serving you without condition or criteria. Only deep, deep resonance, deep love, no question about your beliefs, your perspective, your political insights or beliefs, the ethnicity of origin, your gender, your sexual orientation, the color of your skin, none of it. The breath is serving you freely. And so too it serves everyone and everything above, upon, and within the planet. Indeed, with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything. Not just on our planet, but also throughout the cosmos. For the breath of the planet comes the breath of the cosmos. And with that, innate connection by the breath to that energy underlying everything else. The divine, a light perhaps at a great distance, initially drawing closer with each breath. Eventually close enough that you can perceive those twin frequencies, the divine itself, and the frequency of perfect health intertwined such that there is no separating one from the other. And as that light moves closer, connecting in initially perhaps at your nostrils, and then instantaneously throughout your entire being on every level, known and unknown. The invitation extended to each of the smallest aspects of you. Come return to your natural state of resonance and alignment. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine, and the river is flowing. For whatever remains in separation, I invite you to remove the universal plug. I'll do the same. Let's begin. Notice with each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything. The breath a reminder, a mirror, a reflection of an innate connection that exists, everyone and everything and the divine. Just like a river flows downhill of its own accord, the divine is becoming you and you are becoming the divine. We might go sit down next to a river in your location, wherever you are in the world. All of us gathered in this circle there with you. And we could observe the river flowing. We might even put our feet into the river. We might stand in the river. We might release ourselves to the river and let go and become one with the river. Sitting on its banks, we might decide to perform an experiment. Let's hold an intention. The river is flowing downhill. And indeed, the river is flowing. Yet if we drop the intention entirely, still the river is flowing. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. Turn your back on the river, walk away, forget of its existence. Still the river is flowing. The breath is becoming you, and you are becoming the breath. Return to the river, sit next to it, put your feet in it. The river is flowing. The divine is becoming you, and you are becoming the divine. If you're not currently part of the community, I'll try to open my eyes. If you're not currently part of the community in the sense that you're not receiving email from me on a weekly basis, then you may not understand what's happening. We're gathering in a virtual circle. I've invited every member of our community. And if you're here, you're part of the community. But if you didn't get that email, you don't know. My From My Heart email that went out earlier today reflected on sitting in the circle with you, crying. I first received this vision and sat with it and cried yesterday morning as I wrote that email, that letter from my heart to yours. And it's happened all day today, and here we are. The tears are tears of joy, tears of wonder and awe at the opportunity to be as I am, the weird duck that I am, the strange, wonderful, extraordinary expression of the divine that I am, and the invitation for you to be as you are, without excuse, without explanation, just to be, just to sit, to resonate. It moves me to my core. Oh, I didn't know it would move me this much. This is my third or fourth live stream, and I don't think I've shed a tear yet, but perhaps in this more raw place with you, I feel the presence. I see the presence. I can see the divine in our circle. And it resonates so deeply within my body, within my being. My intention for our time together, if I could have one, though I suspect the divine is moving in our circle in ways that none of us understand but are experiencing at a deep level. The idea that was given to me for our time together today was to sit and explore. And so if you have questions or comments or things that are coming up in your awareness that you'd like to give voice to, I invite you to do that through the comments on the page. We're simulcasting. We're sitting in two circles, really, but it's all one. The circle gathered on Facebook and the circle gathered on YouTube. And so when you comment, I'll try to respond to those and acknowledge and answer questions and so on. And all the while sitting here in this deeper space that actually there was a question earlier today from a member of the community, Jess, who asked me towards the end of her private session with me today, can you explain why I can't talk? Why I can't use words when I'm in transmission with you, Ken? And I said, I'll answer that question later today. So, Jess, I'm going to respond to that. I'm also going to respond to Sue's question. She said, define ego. I think I've been talking about ego in a way that is maybe different than perhaps some other spiritual teachers or people who explore these ideas. And I'm excited to share that with you here in just a moment. I want to acknowledge our beautiful circle here. Judy, I'm just going to respond to these and then I promise we'll get to Sue's question. Judy is saying, such a joy to be with this big circle. Ken, it's wonderful to be with you, Judy. I'm glad you're here. Gary is saying, and I'm not reading these ahead of time, so I assume they're all suitable for prime time. Hello, Ken. Hey, brother. Thank you very much for hosting this gifted event for us. Lots of love and good energy. Thanks, Gary. Gary, lots of love to you. It's wonderful to be with you live. And Kim is saying, and I'm going to let's see if I can put Kim's comment up. Why have us release everything? I love who I am. It's a great question, Kim. The reason why I think it's, let me just say it's an opportunity. It's an invitation. The reason why I invite you to release everything as we come together in the circle, actually, there are a couple of reasons. First of all, it's my perception that, and I think it's wonderful that you love yourself. I love who you are too, Kim, and that's beautiful. And I think it's really important for all of us to fall in love with ourselves and with one another and to have a deep level of acceptance and openness and love for that raw, innate expression of who we really are. And it's my perception that when we release the experience that we're having now, what we're doing is opening up and allowing the divine, allowing God to, it moves me. Oh. When we get out of the way, we open ourselves to allow the divine to express, to paint, to create, to pour into our being more completely. Releasing with the breath is a form of a surrender practice that is so powerful. It's wonderful to love who we are, to love the divine, to love that divine expression. But when we become fixated, when we become attached, we limit that deeper, more complete experience of divine presence that is waiting to more fully express in, through, and as each of us. And so as we release, and when we come into the circle together, we open a space for the divine to express more completely in the mind and animate all the resources that are expressed and contained therein. In the heart, I don't know if you can see me pointing to my heart, we release everything that we have been attached to. And it doesn't matter if we've been identifying with the things that we are not or the things that we are. Still, when we get out of the way even more fully, a deeper, more complete expression of divine presence pours in. And the same, and I'm guessing you can't see me pointing down towards my hips, when we release the third time or the fourth time, we let go of everything since the inception of the soul. We open fully for the undistorted expression of divine presence and resonance as you. And however extraordinary that is, Kim, right now, there is an even more complete and extraordinary expression And from my perspective, it is a mystery. It is unknown and unknowable. And so in this way, we are surrendering to the God we don't know rather than surrendering to the God we know. We are opening up to something that is bigger and more fully, it's not more fully expressed, it's bigger than any of us individually. The divine is the collective expression of all of us, and not just human beings, everyone and everything. Oh, and the comments are pouring in. Someone says they can't see the comments. I'm trying to put them up on the screen. Okay, Linda. I again love that you are doing this. Thanks for changing the time. Much better for me anyway. I was doing a live stream on Monday morning at 10 Colorado time, Mountain Time, where I am, which was noon Eastern. And I did it 2 weeks in a row, and it just didn't resonate. It didn't feel like it was right. And I thought, oh, I'll make a change and I'll make it next week. And then I started crying because I knew it was for us to do today, to begin today and again next week and again and again and again. So we've moved to 5 p.m. Eastern. It's 3 in the afternoon, or at least now, I guess a little after 3:20 Eastern or Mountain Time. And Linda's up in Alaska, which is 2 hours behind. It's about 1:21, 2 hours behind, or I'm 2 hours ahead, whatever the right way to say that. I don't mean to put Colorado at the center of the universe. It's not, just thinking about time for a moment there. Glad you're here, Linda. Someone saying thank you for doing this. Susan checking in from the UK. Susan, I'm so glad you're here. Oh, Susan said, I can't see the comments. The individual comments that are showing up in Facebook will show up in the Facebook queue, and it looks like you're on Facebook, Susan. And then the comments that are coming in on YouTube show up on YouTube, and then I see them all on my screen, and I'm responding to those. And so thank you for checking in. I hope that makes sense. And then I'm putting each individual comment up on the screen, like Eve is saying, being one with everyone thrills my heart. It thrills my heart too. It's such a profound experience, and there is so much resonance here. It's so beautiful to sit with you and everyone here. Where is contact with the group, please? Okay, let me see if I can put up something so that you can. I have to do a new one though. So give me just a second. Let me see. Let's see if somebody can tell me if this is right. Oops, let me do this differently. Sorry, I'm just typing here. stone.com/newsletter. Let's see if I can put this banner up now. Yeah. Did I spell that right? I think so. kenwstone.com/newsletter. That's how you can join the community. Listen, it's free, right? I just mean so that you're participating in the weekly emails and other communications that I share. And then of course you'll know when live streams are happening, assuming I give you a heads up, and you'll understand why I'm crying when I start the live stream, because I have shared from my heart, which is an email that I write on a weekly basis. And if you'd like to see it, you can see it on my website, which is kenwstone.com. Oh, here it is here. And then just look at the blog. Okay. Let me go back to the comments here. Kim wrote again, thank you, Ken. Your tears help heal the earth and all of us. Thank you for sharing them so generously. Oh, thank you. Susan says there's nothing on the Facebook stream. I'm sorry, Susan. I don't know. I'm not a Facebook expert. I just thought they would be there. Okay, here's a question. I'm going to start here, and then we'll go to Sue's question, and I'll come to Jess's question, and then I'll come back to additional comments. Okay, how does that sound? And if you're just tuning in, We're sitting in resonance as a community in a virtual circle, which is going to choke me up again. What are we doing? We're sinking in. We're experiencing the divine within. We are being in a deeper way within ourselves. It's so important when we sit together to stay within your own energy. I know it's very tempting right now to send energy out to the planet or to people who are suffering or struggling. And I'll explain more if you're interested in exploring that idea. It's so important not to do that, but to sit with your own experience of the divine within. And when we sit together, we resonate with the embodied divine. And as we resonate, that is enlivened within us and within everyone. But there is nothing to send. God is in everyone equally. And we are having an experience of that. Okay, Angelica, beautiful question. I'm going to try to look down on the screen and read it here. How do you deal with fear of the unknown? Thanks so much. So great to be with all of you. So I want to draw pictures. I hope that's okay. And if you have questions, please do submit either on Facebook or on YouTube, wherever you are right now, and I'll do my best to answer them. Obviously, this is a much better time than the other time that I've been live streaming, and this is the right way for us to gather. And so I'll stay online as long as I can and answer as many questions as possible as we sink in. And if you're here just to meditate, and the sound of my voice is fading away, sink in and be in the interior. Be within the experience of the divine within you. Whatever is coming up for you, feel that fully. Allow that to express and be with that. The words that I'm sharing are not the most important thing here. I'm honored to share my perspective, but I offer you my perspective in service to your own journey, the discovery of the divine and the experience and the embodiment and integration of the divine within you, that you may come to your own awareness for your connection with God, with the divine by whatever name, is much more significant than anyone else's connection with the divine could be for you. Anyone, it doesn't matter who they are. Certainly that's true for me, and I believe it's true with anyone. So, Angelica, I want to draw a picture, and let's see if I can share my screen here. And I just want to draw a picture of the stages of consciousness for just a moment. Okay. And if this is new for you, I'll explain it. And for those of you who are listening but can't see what I'm drawing, I can be in deeper flow if I just go with what's coming up and try not to describe it. And so what I would ask you is just to be with the experience that's unfolding in your awareness, even as I'm drawing, because there's an entirely different level of communications going on when we're in this deeper transmission together. And it's not predicated on the language or on the drawing. I understand those can be helpful, but don't feel like you're missing out on anything. It's just another avenue of communicating something for which there are no words, which I suspect you're having an experience of anyway. So we're all born in God consciousness, having an experience of what is actually real, of our innate connection with the divine. It's the foundation. Doesn't matter the circumstances of our, I'm going to put this comment down so you can see the screen fully. Doesn't matter the circumstances of how we were born or how we were conceived. All of us are born in this way. And if you think about it, in God consciousness, this is an experience. If you think about a young person that you know of or in your life, very young, or maybe even into maybe 8 or 9 or 10, sometimes even older, before there's a move into the next stage of consciousness, there's this innate connection with divinity and with everything. And it's not an idea, it's an experience. And many times young people have what sometimes adults refer to as imaginary friends. They're having an experience of what's actually real, this innate connection. At some point, we start having experiences of being victimized. And oops, that's going to make for an interesting scale here. This is victim consciousness. The move from God consciousness into victim consciousness can happen in many different ways. And once we move into it, it's like a meandering river. And then there's a transition into controlling or manifester consciousness. There's a singular transition point here, which we can talk about. Again, meandering river, and then a single point of transition into conduit. Conduit consciousness. And then there's this rising river here, and then lots of different pathways into the final stage of consciousness. Hopefully you can see the implication here. We've gone home, we're in the house. Union consciousness. So Angelica asked, how do we deal with uncertainty? Or how would I suggest, how do I deal with uncertainty? And in victim consciousness, we're having an experience of other people having power and a circumstance and individuals. And let's say others have power. And in controlling consciousness, I don't mean I can, I just mean any of us individually in controlling, I have the power. Here, my concern is safety. Here, my concern is creating my dreams. There's lots of certainty here, right? In controlling consciousness. There's a lot of uncertainty here, but there's no resolution. In victim consciousness, the divine has forgotten us or abandoned us. That's the experience we're having. I'm not saying it's true. You'll notice all of this entire house is built on the foundation of God consciousness. The whole thing is divine. But when we make this transition into conduit consciousness, what we do here is we surrender. 2 R's. And this is moving into an unknown. We could just shade this entire box in because it's the unknown experience of the divine mystery. And the thing is that when we're having an experience of the unknown divine mystery, there's uncertainty at every step. This is where surrender comes into play. The more we surrender, the more we open up to a complete experience of divinity, having realized our limits. So I know I'm setting the stage, Angelica. You know better than to ask me a simple question because you're going to get a more complete answer than maybe what you wanted. But the answer for dealing with uncertainty from my perspective is all about recognizing that in the step into the mystery is a step closer to God. It's a step from away from carrying the burden of I have all the control in controlling consciousness, right? Into I no longer am carrying that burden. Here in controlling consciousness, I have all the power and God is my servant, right? But when I surrender, when I move into conduit consciousness, and by the way, I don't mean I can, I just mean we all are going through that as we make this transition. So it's easiest for me just to say I rather than you. You doesn't seem so friendly to me. But if I'm talking about the experience of victim consciousness and I'm referring to myself, maybe it's easier for all of us to see ourselves in that experience. So When I move into conduit consciousness and I let go of control, I do so because I realize I am at the limit of what I can actually control. It's a glass ceiling, an absolute limit. And this is what we are now being faced with on the planet, I believe, in the collective. We're stepping into the unknown in a really profound way. It's not profound in the sense that it appears to be profound, but the impact in the positive sense of that word, but the impact is extraordinary in the sense that it stirs up all those things that we think we don't have control over. It stirs up all the things that we think we do have control over. And in both cases, we run to the limit. We run to the limit of victim consciousness, we run to the limit of controlling consciousness, and we step into this unknown box here of conduit consciousness. And if we remember that that move in our journey in consciousness brings us closer to the divine, because we stop holding out a stop sign and saying, hey, God, I've got this covered with my idea of what I want my life to look like or how I think this needs to resolve. I'm now opening up for divinity to express and flow through me. And I have a much more intimate relationship with divinity. Rather than God as my servant, I am God's servant. And so if we look at the parallel in our lives, for me, the answer to uncertainty relates to this invitation further into the divine mystery, this invitation into the unknown of God's presence. And in conduit consciousness, another thing that we're realizing, and we're actually experiencing it, the realizations on all of these levels when they're integrated are experiential. And generally, this transition around surrender has to be experiential because it's the empowered separate self that is surrendering. It's not the whole self that's saying, hey, it's time to let go of control. The whole self knows it's not in control. The whole self knows it is light through which the divine shines, or it is the bulb through which the divine light illuminates and shines. And so in that dealing with unknown and uncertainty, there's this invitation to recognize the parallel track between closer to divinity in spiritual surrender and closer to divinity in our everyday lives as we move into an environment where the things that we thought were real and the way we thought the world was no longer appears to be true. And we're being invited, in my estimation, to open more fully to divine presence and experience. Okay. So I'm going to answer. I want to answer Sue's question about about ego. Okay. So define ego. So, and I'm going to use this other. We'll just do a simple drawing here of the stages of consciousness. So for me, ego is I've been trying to think of the best way to say this. I'm just going to say it's the source of the motivation to act, engage, or express. And from my perspective, the ego is present in separation with the disempowered separate self. The motivation from this perspective is very different than the motivation from this perspective, still now empowered. And now moving into conduit consciousness, we're having an experience of becoming identified with our whole self. There's the separation still exists because we're surrendering, but still the ego is present, right? I still have a motivation, an impetus to engage, to act. And still that exists up here in union consciousness, which, by the way, union consciousness includes the totality. I think I drew a circle to indicate that before. So this is a different interpretation, I think, than what many other people refer to. Some people want to draw a parallel between what I refer to as the separate self, I'm sure others have as well, and the ego, I don't think that's not how I see it. The separate self is expressed in the ego, but the thing is, if the separate self is expressed in the ego, then so is the whole self, because every expression of separation in the separate self is an aspect of the whole self that is being unwrapped and integrated and embodied through the experience of being identified with the separate self. And then we're still taking action. We're still inspired in the identification of our whole selves. And my experiences, I'll just say this, in embodied union, I still feel inspired to engage, to be in the world. And we could even say to act from, I guess, from an individualized perspective. And the thing is, many people might look at this and say, well, wait a second, in union consciousness, how is there still an individuated expression? And I guess I'm happy to dive into this if there are questions about this, but we each of us still exist in union consciousness. I mean, the fact is we are all one, right? Whether or not we're having an experience of that, that's the question. It's not a question whether or not we're all this. I mean, I suppose it might be, right? From these different perspectives, we might wonder, am I actually an undistorted expression of divinity? But as we begin having those experiences, the thing that is changing is our perspective of ourselves. Oops, I'm sorry. I thought that my ringer was turned off. It's not. Now it is. We're still having an experience of our individuated selves, but now the context or the manner in which we are perceiving ourselves and others has changed radically. Okay. So let's go back to questions. Oh, and then Jess's question. Let's go back here. Why can't I talk? Oh, I'm going to share the screen. Why can't I talk in transmission? So here's why. Oops. I actually have to turn on my iPad here. Talking is generally coming from the mind and ideas. And when we're in transmission together, we're in the process of embodying, of sinking down, the soul coming home in the body. So maybe we begin to feel things in our heart. And as we begin becoming identified with those feelings, the ideas start to fade a little bit. And then we drop into the hips, into a state of being. And when we're embodied deeply in a state of being, what changes is that now we're primarily identified in our being experience, and our ideas, our mind, and our feelings are integrating. They're becoming part of that experience. But the lead energy oftentimes is being. And this can make it very difficult to communicate with words. So there's a quick answer. How's that? I've set a record. Okay. Susan says, other groups have comments down the side simultaneously with the main speaker. Susan, I am so sorry. I'll have to ask John Paduchek. He is my live stream guru, and I will ask John why that is and why it's not here. I don't have an easy answer for you right now. I'm sorry it's not happening that way. Ron from Seattle, each morning 3 a.m. I get communication from people. I know it's only in my mind. Okay, I think you said it was a question. Oh, but they're always in, here's the rest. But they're always in other, they're always in others, in the other's voice. Okay. I need help, Ron. I would love to answer the question, and I'm reading this as a fact, and I'm saying, okay, that sounds really interesting. And so can you help me by following up with a question here? And I would love to answer it. It makes sense to me. It's not clear to me that it's only your mind, I guess would be my comment, but I'm happy to dive in deeper, but I'd like to address my comments in a way that are meaningful for you. Uh, Linda says YouTube comments are streaming across the bottom of the video above. Thank you so much, Linda, for sharing that. I didn't realize that. Masharna is saying, hello, everyone. Okay. Kenneth Stone, another Kenneth Stone says, really, the abuser causes the fear of the unknown. So get away from what you don't know or understand. I'm not sure what the comment is there. But the abuser doesn't always cause the fear of the unknown, actually. I want to disagree with you, Kenneth, because it's not, an abuser is an example of what could create a fear of the unknown. But let's talk about this, actually. I want to explore this because this is an important point here. So here we've got God consciousness, we've got victim, controlling, conduit, union. Okay, there's this little triangle here, and we're going to expand this. This is late victim consciousness. And now we're going to look at this in another thing here. So here's the tip of that triangle. This is the drama triangle. And in the drama triangle, there is a perpetrator, a rescuer, and a victim. And you could put them however you want on the triangle. But in this dynamic, each person is playing each part. There's Dr. Stephen Karpman identified the drama triangle. And it seems to me, at least in my perceptual view, that the drama triangle is unfolding in late victim consciousness. The drama triangle is an attempt to have power over another. So it's still very much a disempowered dynamic. That fear of the unknown there is coming. Certainly there is a fear of the unknown that is being experienced in each stage of consciousness, except in God consciousness and except in union consciousness. The fear is directed towards something very different, though. The fear in victim consciousness generally relates to safety. And when we're in this dynamic, these are actually temporary roles. So once somebody starts playing the victim and the perpetrator and the rescuer, they're destined to play each of these roles. Once these integrate, they offer a substantial gift once they're integrated, but they really don't begin to be integrated until we're into conduit consciousness. So I'm not sure I understand what the comment there was, Kenneth, but my point is that there are many, many different sources of fear. And my interest is in trying to distill them down so that we can understand them at a foundational level and understand in what way they are supporting our developmental journey in consciousness. Okay, so Susan says, thanks. It's coming now. Ron is saying, we have C immunization as if they are in front of me. Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm not, again, I don't understand the question here, Ron. We have communication. Oh, see, communication as if you and I are talking now. I asked the person to back their request with a text message. However, if I do not get that text, it's like, let's meet for coffee at this place. However, I do not get that text. Yes, but see, Ron, your awareness of what's happening in consciousness may not be the same of other people's awareness in consciousness. That doesn't invalidate your experience. From my perspective, I'm just sharing my perspective. So, so for me, Ron, there are all these things that begin expressing, right, in this journey, right? There are gifts that show up. The gifts show up in all the stages of consciousness, but especially here in conduit. And of course, there are many gifts in God consciousness as well. And maybe there are previews that we're seeing in each stage of consciousness. But to me, what you're talking about is a level of awareness. And these might be intuitive gifts. But the fact that you're aware of them and other people aren't aware of them, or they don't back them up with a text message, does not mean that the experience you're having isn't a valid experience. So I would just encourage you to continue exploring it. And what if you made the assumption that the experience you're having is valid? How would that cause you to change the way you interact? What would you do with that information? I'd be um, curious about that. John Paduchek says, "Hi Ken. Here's John, the expert. He happens to be on the line. The drama triangle, one of my personal favorites. I must have a huge gift to integrate." John, we all do. It's what's so incredible about each stage of consciousness is that when we look at them, oops, I don't know why oh well, I've lost my iPad. I guess I'm done drawing for today. I don't know. When we look at each different stage of consciousness, there are many, many gifts. It's easy to become sort of focused on there are these things that are holding me back in victim consciousness, or in the current environment, perhaps we're having an experience in conduit consciousness, but we keep being drawn into a victim dynamic, which can feel like whiplash. I'm having this profound experience of divine presence, and then the next minute, I'm getting triggered by something that's going on at a much deeper level, and having an experience of being victimized at the same time. Maybe there's anger or rage or some other disembodied response that's coming up as a function of that. And from my perspective, the key here is that there are all these extraordinary gifts that are packed into each stage of consciousness. And only once we unpack them fully are they completely integrated. And to your point, there are amazing gifts all the time. Kenneth says, I see the elements now to be aware of self being conscious. Yeah, I think the thing the perspective that I'm wanting to bring to the spiritual conversation that's going on in our circle and in the world is not about trying to define something definitively. I'm trying to offer a structure that I have received, or that expresses through me, or that I've noticed that has shown up in the form of different spiritual practices and so on. And I'm trying to offer this structure as a scaffolding to support you, not yes, you individually, you collectively, all of us. It supports me as well in stepping further into the unknown experience of divine presence. And then at that point, the structure has to melt away. And so I'm not trying to contradict exactly. I just want to expand the perceptual view. And I'm not trying to claim that I have the ultimate perceptual view here at all. I mean, nothing could be further from the truth. I'm just offering my perspective into the circle as the conversation unfolds. So Ron is saying, okay. And he says, I would meet the person at the point at 3 a.m. I'm sorry, 3 p.m. and see if they show up. Yeah, you could, Ron. But listen, there's another thing that is going on here. It's what if I've lost my iPad, so I don't get to draw. So I'm just going to close my eyes. Maybe that's a better way for me to communicate at this point anyway. What if what is unfolding in your awareness, Ron, and actually, what if this is true for all of us? What if what is unfolding in our awareness is an expression of what is being enlivened in each stage of consciousness that is integrating? And what if, rather than approaching that from a place of skepticism, we approach that from a place of expanded perceptual view? What if we just open up to a bigger experience of what's actually real, even though it may not fit with how we see the world? I mean, if you think about it, in victim consciousness, and we've all been there, and maybe we're all there now to some degree, that's being enlivened for a lot of people. And in victim consciousness, there's a fundamental fear of safety. And notice, and fundamentally, victim consciousness is about the disempowered separate self. Now, the transition from disempowered to empowered is both simple and enormously complex, right? Simple in the sense that it's about taking or accepting complete responsibility. Complex in the sense that we all have to work through what we have to work through. And here's my point. In that transition between victim and controlling or manifestor consciousness, the entire world changes. I mean, God goes from some disengaged, distant, not present entity, right, that's sort of abandoned or is punishing. There are lots of different ways of describing it, to now God is your servant. The universe does as you command. That's a profound change. If you say to somebody from the perspective of controlling consciousness to somebody in victim consciousness, all you need to do is take total responsibility. They might look at you like, wait, that's nuts. In the same way that you might be looking at yourself saying, well, that's nuts that there are people talking to me and I don't know if that's real. But what if you're opening up to a deeper experience of what's actually real within us? What if this way of talking with one another happens over the innate connection that exists between all of us? Let's call it the divine wire, right? The divine thread that weaves this incredible tapestry that expresses as humanity on this planet, or consciousness on this planet. Not just a divine tapestry between people, but also with animals. There are lots of people who are gifted in communicating with animals, who literally hear in whatever way, sometimes auditorily and in other ways hear and engage and communicate with animals, or with rocks, or with the consciousness of a tree, and so on. And what if we begin perceiving that experience not as something that is not real, but something which is inviting us further into the unknown experience of the divine? That's, I guess, my invitation to you, Ron, and I think to all of us. I just want to wait for a moment. I don't see any other questions coming in the queue, but I'm happy to respond if there are any other questions. I'm just going to close my eyes and we can do a little bit of breathing and kind of reset a little bit. And then to wrap up our time, I'd kind of like to drop in a little bit deeper into silence and just sit together. The vision I had was, if we, and maybe someday we'll be able to do this, if we paused, those of us who could, paused at a certain time during the week. I just decided, what if it's today? What if it's Wednesdays? What if the time is 5 p.m. Eastern? Hopefully that allows. Someone checked in from the UK earlier, so it's early enough, hopefully, that Europe can participate, and maybe the timing's right for Australia as well, and parts of Asia and so on. So hopefully it's a convenient enough time for many of us to just gather from wherever we are on the planet to sit together. And if we do this once a week, we have an opportunity to sit and to share. Here's my experience. I was working in the dirt and I had this, or whatever's coming up. Ron, I'm hearing these voices and it doesn't seem like it's real, or it would only be real if this and this were true, or whatever comes up. Angelica, how do you face the unknown? Or what do you suggest? Sue, about define the ego, or Jess, why can't I talk when I'm in transmission? Come out when she's sitting in the circle. Michael came into the room, her sweetheart. This is a couple of weeks ago on Monday. And he said, what are you doing? And she couldn't even communicate with words. She said, you were drawing pictures, Ken, and we were already in the transmission and I couldn't even get words out of my mouth. Why was that? And Jess has been part of this community for years and years, long time. So it's not, there's nothing wrong that these things are happening. There's nothing wrong. What's opening up is a deeper experience of divine presence. And if we had this chance to sit together and resonate, even if we said nothing, maybe especially if we said nothing, we could sink in deeper into the truth of who we really are. And the things that appear to be real might fade a little bit in intensity, and the things that appeared as not real start to become more real. Because in fact, at that deeper level, there is so much opening up here, so much beauty, so much resonance. Divinity is everywhere. Clint, I haven't read. I just saw your name. Communicate with the soul of the universe, the sun, the galaxy, some planet unknown to humans. Yeah, that's right. We're just being who we really are. Awesome, Ron. Great. I will step into it fully now. And Ron also says, when three or more unite in the divine. Yeah, really, two or more, right? Wherever two or more are gathered. Okay, some great comments coming in. Let's sink in, shall we? Deep breath in, hold. And as you begin releasing this breath, just let go of everything we just talked about and explore it. All the thoughts that got stirred up, all the things that resonated, all the things that felt dissonant, just let it all go. Open up to that beautiful blank slate and be with the divine expression, whatever it is. If you're just tuning in, I'm affirming the plug has been pulled. We have begun. I just remind you of what I shared with you in my From My Heart email earlier today. Self-care, seva, nothing to send, just to be. Sometimes the resonance will rise to the level of being expressed or experienced in the body. And maybe that's a tingling or a buzzing or a feeling of like warm oil being poured on you, or there are lots of different sensations associated with it. And if you begin having that experience, it's just the outward expression of that inward innate connection with the divine. And if you're not having that experience, nothing's wrong. There's nothing broken. You're not doing anything wrong. In fact, you can't mess this up. Oftentimes, when I'm doing this with an open group as this is. It's filled with lots of guidance and just a few things coming up to share, and we'll just drop back into silence again. If your mind starts wandering, you can bring it back to that sort of consolidated awareness that comes out of divine connecting breath. With each breath, the river is flowing. With each breath, you are connected to everyone and everything, including the divine, that light at a great distance, initially perhaps drawing closer, the twin frequencies, eventually connecting into each and every aspect of you, known and unknown. The river is flowing. The invitation to return on the part of that light, that divine presence, to return to your natural state of resonance and alignment. The artifacts of dissonance appearing to fall away and gather at that universal drain. The divine becoming you and you becoming the divine. The river is flowing. You find yourself trying to push on deepening the experience or directing the energy. There's nothing to send, just to be. And just remind yourself, the river is flowing. The river is flowing. If you find your center of gravity drifting outside of you, just drop in again at the top of your head and descend from there. You could think of it like walking down a ladder or stairs or a ramp, or just descending down through the core of your being. As you descend, everything is illuminated as your soul descends. And all that is relevant, all that matters, the origin of everything is here within you. And as you drop all the way down into the hips, it's a being state. There's nothing to do, nothing to feel or think. The feelings might naturally express or arise. The thoughts might naturally bubble up. If they do and they're coming from a being state, they'll all be completely resonant. If they're not, it's okay. Just remember, the river is flowing. You can keep your eyes closed. I'm just going to mute my line and get some water here. It reminds me of the importance of being hydrated when we're doing this kind of work. So just a gentle reminder to make sure you drink plenty. Water is my preferred way of being hydrated, but perhaps you have others. Whatever it is perfect. There's something that naturally happens when we sit like this in transmission. I call it soul embodiment. I won't go into it right now with a lot of words. Just as an invitation, the opportunity with soul embodiment is manyfold, but let's just focus in on one opportunity to transmute the trauma that has been holding you in a cycle, in a pattern, sort of stuck, repeating the same dynamic. And so as we're sitting in this deeper resonance, the opportunity is actually to feel whatever comes up fully, emotionally and physically, or in other ways as well, which might seem kind of counterintuitive. If I'm sitting in deeper resonance, why would I feel it? You don't have to go looking for it. It'll come up if it's coming up. But if it does, and you allow yourself to feel it, the source of that, the origin of that wound or trauma, however you want to think of it, it will be transmuted to the degree to which you feel it as you're being supported in embodying your soul. So if there are things coming up to feel, even if they don't feel congruent with what appears to be happening, that is sinking in, deeper embodied resonance, if it's tears or grief or laughter or physical pain or whatever it is, whatever those feelings are, just invite you to allow yourself to feel them fully. Another thing that can happen, and I'm just noticing this right now, again, maybe aware of it, may not be. It feels like it's happening in the collective. So to some degree for everyone in the circle, there's a degree of resonance that's opening up in the intuitive faculty. And so you may be thinking, well, I'm not intuitive, Ken. What are you talking about? Or you might be participating in the replay and wondering, well, how could I be having that experience now through the replay? We're outside of the illusion of time and space when we're sitting in transmission. It's a experience of the enlivened divine within you. It's not about the recording. It's not something embedded in the recording. It's what is being enlivened in you in real time. So whenever you're experiencing this, that is now. And that enlivenment, whether you're aware of your intuitive gifts or not, is happening on some basic level. And so if you start seeing things or feeling things in your body, sometimes resonance comes up around the eyes or the forehead or the crown or other parts of your body. None of this is abnormal at all. Very, very normal. And if it's not happening for you, that's not abnormal either. Wide range of experiences going on. Yes, in a virtual circle, just like this. Happens all the time. Very much part of what I would consider normal, however abnormal it might be for you. Or normal it is for you. There are lots of people in this circle we've been sitting together for a lot of years. The other thing I love about sitting together is um, we are where we are. Whatever's happened today has happened today. Whatever experience is unfolding this week in your life is what's unfolding. And yet here we are, sinking in. Deeper embodied resonance, deeper experience of the divine. Oh my gosh. My mouth started buzzing and I opened my eyes. And here is a note from Melanie, who was at a retreat back in 2013 at Gramercy Mansion outside of Baltimore. And Melanie, are you still in Australia? Hercules, my kitten, and I are dropping in together. I have a pain caught behind my right shoulder. Can you help me drop into it, please? Permission to move, invitation to stretch. Thanks, buddy. Of course. Oh, Melanie, wow. How many years? Oh my goodness. What a beautiful community. Mm. Wow. I was thinking about how, I'm not sure, I just started seeing pictures of, each stage of consciousness floating up. And we've talked about the gifts of the various stages. And it also means that we each experience these stages from totally different perspectives because we're all different people, yet somehow one. And I would say the overarching theme of the work that I do, or it's not even that I'm doing, the way that God works through me or expresses through me, is really, I think, about a recognition that there is something bigger, more complete, waiting to express more fully through each and every one of us on the planet. And this is not to diminish us or to make us less than or anything like that. Every experience that we're having is so important and essential in that developmental journey through victim consciousness and through controlling and conduit and so on. And when we begin recognizing that we are this instrument through which the divine expresses, and that's not just true for you, but it's true of every single person, no matter how much you agree with what they believe or how they act or what they say or don't. It doesn't matter. They're still the same undistorted expression of divinity. And then the layers, the apparent distortions that express through our human being are just the ways that the illusion of separation, the ways we encounter that, the ways we respond to the pain of that, the ways we respond to the dynamic of disempowerment in victim consciousness or to empowerment in controlling consciousness, or to the liberation of conduit consciousness. So beautiful. Oh, Melanie, in Australia, loving you right back. Eve is saying, thanks to everyone, much love to all. Separation, not. That's awesome. If there are other reflections or questions filtering in here for the last couple minutes before we wrap up for today, I would love to share those. Here's Eve's comment. And Melanie. Oh, so beautiful. It's so extraordinary to sit together. I feel us all here as if we were in a hall or in a stadium or on a field. It stretches out. It feels that close to me. We feel that connected. It's really beautiful to sit with you. I was thinking about one of the things that's going to happen tomorrow for me and for some of the members of our community is we're going to do a deep dive workshop together. We're going to spend about 3 hours together, dropping in even deeper. And if you're interested in being part of that experience, I want to invite you to check it out and see if it resonates with you. And if it does, to register. You can find out more at deepdiveworkshop.com. I'll put it up on the screen. I'll put it in the description too later. Oh, John, thank you. He says it's so fun to see you basking in all of this. What I feel I'm basking in is in God's presence within us all. And thanks to your help, I am experiencing it in a new way through this connection that has always existed, or at least for a long time. I just never understood or was scared or whatever to put the camera on and to sit like this. So thank you all. And John, especially, thank you. Yeah, we are all outstanding. I'm the field. Brilliant. Thank you, Julie. I'm just going to put up the deep dive information. Is it here? Yeah, there it is. Deep dive workshop.com. If you're interested, we do it every couple of weeks. If it's of interest to you, I'd love to share that experience with you if it resonates. There's another comment coming in. Gary, wow, thank you very much, Ken. Hey, brother, I felt the sinking down deep, and it is wonderful. Love you, man. Lots of love and good energy. And to you, Gary, I so appreciate you. You know what? I just am remembering I owe you a text, Gary. I'm so sorry I didn't respond to you. I'll text you back when we're done. I'll say hi and text. So appreciate you, man. Thanks for being here. Melanie is saying something, I think. Dropping, you mentioned the ladder steps, but I saw a fireman's pull down into the lake. I saw a fireman's pull too. I didn't want to say anything. I did too. So for those of you who don't know, there's all this imagery that has been showing up for years that I've been talking about and teaching, and one of them is into the lake. We'll talk more about it sometime when we're sitting together. I saw it too, Melanie. I'm so glad you're saying that. It's so great. Oh, so good. So we don't have to wrap up just yet. We got a couple more minutes if you'd like to sit together. Oh, yeah. Look at that. Oh, it's so sweet of you. Thank you, Catherine. You're such a beautiful soul, Ken. Thank you. Thank you for your kind comments and your presence. I was sure that oh, leaky eye syndrome. The tears are gonna start flowing again. It's so amazing to sit, just to be together, just to sit and resonate at the level of what's real. Here's another thing. I don't know if I said this earlier, but when we're embodied in our minds, we're in victim consciousness. When we're embodied in our minds and our hearts, we're in controlling consciousness. When we're embodied in our hips, we're in conduit consciousness. Such a difference. It feels different. When we drop into our hips, we're present, fully present. What a gift. Okay. So there's a really simple process for closing this circle. And I know I didn't explain this, and I have in other videos, and if you'd like to look at other videos, that's great, but the understanding is not important, just being. That's what's important. Here's Michelle checking in. So more people saying hi. Thanks, Ken. See you tomorrow in the deep dive. Yes, I will see you tomorrow, Michelle. Can't wait. Oh, and Sherry, oh my goodness. Sherry checking in, jumped on late in the transmission, but still enjoying deep connecting resonance. Thank you. Oh, Sherry, so good to hear from you. So if you want to explore the understanding, there are other videos, you can check them out. But here's what we're going to do. We're just going to close our eyes again and take a deep breath in and hold. And as you release this breath, releasing yourself fully into the arms of God, your mind, your heart, your being. For the divine is animating your thoughts, your feelings, and your being, your actions. You are an undistorted expression and extension of the divine. I invite you to begin returning the universal plug now. I'll do the same as I begin bringing this transmission to a close. Such an honor to sit with you, to resonate, to be, to laugh, to cry, to explore with words and in silence. I can't wait to be back with you again. For those that are already joining in the deep dive, I'll be with you tomorrow. Can't wait to take that deep dive with you once again. For those of you who will be joining, can't wait for you to participate as well, for you to be part of this really beautiful virtual workshop experience. And for everyone, I can't wait to be with you next Wednesday. I think we found our time. It resonates deeply with me. We just have a chance to sit together. We can explore with words and we can be. Underneath everything else is the divine. Everything without exception. Everything. So plug all the way in, transmission to a close. May each breath open a deeper experience of who you really are on every level of your thinking, feeling, and being. Until we're together again very soon. Peace.